it was and what sport I was supposed to be going to.
Yeah, I had lost track of that as well. So, definitely loved, again, shout out to Colin Delaney and Madison Cannistrari and our soccer and volleyball championships. Love doing those, but it definitely. So, welcome back, Peter, for after what has been 2 weeks before Power Ranking. So every team since the last time we did this has played 2 games, except for a couple that had a bye and played 1. But there's been 2 games. So I want to just be clear. What are you doing to me, ECC? What are you doing to me? Everybody that has come up to me and gave me, hey, why aren't you wearing this colored shirt? Why don't you do that? Because I got nothing this week. You know what? Can we just put Killingly as like the top 6 teams in the power ranking?
Technically, we could do that. I mean, we could also just pick up a piece of paper at a time and just make that the order.
First of all, I don't even know how to keep it to 10. I don't know how to put them in order. To put it in perspective, I have a team that got beat by 47 points as my number 2 team in the power rankings. They just got beat by 47 points. So that's a tease. But let's start easy enough. Killingly went 2-0 this week. They stay number 1. But to be clear, both Fitch and Griswold at times this year have been number 2 in my power rankings. They are both incredibly reputable, high-end ECC teams. Killingly 57, Fitch 16, Killingly 60, Griswold 13. Is it possible that this Killingly team is the most dominant team we have ever had in football on game day?
So I've been thinking about that, and I can't think of an argument for another team right now. There have been some very good teams in the almost 20 years that I've worked here. We've seen New London win a state title with a future pro.
Yep.
Or didn't win the state title with the future pro, but a team with a future pro that did go on to win a state title. Right. We've seen some other very impressive Killingly teams. I don't know that there's somebody that I can put on top of this.
I mean, they haven't had a close game all year, including Masick and including Hendricken and including Jonathan Law, and they haven't been close. If they run out the stretch like this, they have a chance. And now, again, I go back to the 80s, 90s with New London teams that won like 48 out of 50 games over 5 years. And I can't remember that Fitch team that didn't even make the playoffs. I get it. Some of the Fitch teams that won back in their dominance. But since we started broadcasting on game day, I cannot, off the top of my head, remember a team as dominant as this Killingly team. If I'm wrong, feed me, but I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. And
you're going to need to bring me some evidence if you say, don't just say, oh, that team with a... No, come at me with numbers because it's not close.
No, I don't think so. I mean, if there's an argument to be made, it's another Killingly team, but I don't know that there's been another Killingly team that's been so complete. There might have been like a better back.
Spencer Lockwood.
Yeah. Or there might have been a line that you could make an argument was better. But this team dominates in every phase of the game.
I mean, to the point where I don't, people have said to me, could you, you can't possibly praise Killingly anymore. I don't know that we can do enough to praise how good this Killingly team's been. And quick little anecdote. I saw an interview with a Killingly player, and he was asked why he was the fullback and not the tailback because he's actually a small, Allard's bigger than him and stuff. And he said, well, we started at those positions when we were, 8. So if you want to know, we talk about building your program. these Killingly High School football players have not only been playing together since they were 8, they've been playing the same positions. So they ran the same offense at 8 that they run 10 years later. They block for in the same schemes. They stick to those positions. So Killingly's less worried about, are you the prototype size of a player? It's, can you handle the responsibilities? And I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, and we've talked about this over and over again. You can see the work that they all put in to their bodies to make themselves bigger and stronger. And you hear it from coaches ad nauseum, and I don't like it resonates every year. Like, you talk to coaches and they will tell you the kids who were in the weight room over the summer, who've worked on it during the off season. I don't know that there's another team that can say every one of us was in there working out together every year. And so, yeah. To teams that are looking to make the step up, like, there's the model. Like, listen to what your coaches are telling you about off-season training, because Killingly has been doing it and are going to continue doing it.
And it begs the question, if you're running an 8 to 10 program, 8 to 10-year-old program, is your responsibility or your goal to win a micro division championship, or is it to model yourself after the high school that wants to win state championships and become part of a bigger picture? And I'm not suggesting that you have to do that, but I'm saying that Killingly's youth program is modeling themselves after the high school program leads to program success across levels, and I think that's something that is interesting, because I think a lot of youth teams are interested in winning. They want to win their youth championship, and maybe it's a lot to ask to be a part of a bigger thing at that age. But
so nobody is tuning in to find out who's number one this week.
That's right. But I will say, Killingly, what's the next up for them this week? Live on game day, Friday night, against NFA, who will be making their appearance in this poll here shortly. But number 2, I'm going to leave Griswold right where they are. They went out and hammered Amistad, putting up 62 points, and then they got absolutely mushed by Killingly. I have, since the beginning of the season, and more now than ever, removed all Killingly results from influence in a negative way. It can influence in a positive way. You could, but that loss to Killingly is not going to. Griswold is still, to me, right there at number 2. They got Stonington this week, which I think will be an interesting game as long as it's not played in a monsoon. But right now, Griswold stays 2 because I'm just discounting Killingly results.
And that game this week is interesting because Griswold is number 8 in the Class S playoff standings, and Stonington is right down below them on the bubble. And so based on your rankings, I think Griswold might be the favored team, but Stonington would like nothing better than to play the spoiler and potentially put themselves in line for a playoff spot.
And if you're wondering about all those CIAC playoff possibilities, later this week, Mike DeMauro and I are going to sit down. You'll be able to check that out. We're going to take a look at all of the standings currently in the CIAC and kind of give you an idea of what teams are lurking. And I will tell you, I teased a team already. We're going to get to them momentarily. And shocking, they are still in this very much. As a matter of fact, if the playoffs were to start today, this team is in. Who is that going to be? Well, Killingly would be in. Griswold would be in. Coming in at number 3 for me this week is another team that would be in, and that is the Ledyard Colonels, one of only 3 teams that won its games while we were away for 2 weeks. They took care of business in a very convincing win. Ledyard did against Wyndham, and then even more convincingly against East Lyme, which I think is the game that sort of really resonated and puts them back up into the 3 spot. And then they've got Woodstock coming up next. And if anyone hasn't realized after Woodstock beat Waterford and was down the stretch with NFA, if anyone hasn't realized Woodstock is a legitimate team, Ledyard needs to buckle up and keep their eyes on the prize this week.
We kind of crowned the winner of that Waterford-Ledyard game the Division II champion. And
not so fast.
No, not so fast, because Woodstock beats Ledyard, and they end up on top of that ECC Division II.
If I have more papers to rip up and throw in the air, I would. Coming in at number 4 is another one of those teams that went 2-0, and I heard you. I've been on this team, in fairness to me, I've been on this team, as have you, since the beginning of the season, and we said this team is better than their early results, very tough schedule, and if they get things kind of figured out, NFA is now above 500, 2-0 this week with a shutout over East Lyme and giving up only 6 points to Woodstock. Defensively, this team has been excellent all year. We saw it in the game against Xavier. This team can play defense, and they are now not only above 500, but if the playoffs were to start today, they would be the 8th seed in Double L, which is also mind-boggling to consider. And how much did that Xavier loss? I mean, they might be the number 5 team if they had beaten that Xavier team.
Yeah, and looking at the other teams on the bubble in Double L, there's none of them have a cupcake schedule. So,
in theory, NFA could absorb a loss to Killingly and get their 4th loss of the season and still be in position to make the play.
They've got their work cut out for them.
Yes.
Like there's none of these teams have an easy path, and certainly not NFA. But when they were 0-3, to be talking about a playoff spot might have seemed laughable, but they've won 4 straight. Mm-hmm. Hottest team in the league right now, behind Killingly, and I wonder if you've underrated them a little bit.
Well, I can't put them ahead of the team at 3 who beat them.
Fair enough.
And I can't put 3 ahead of 2 who beat them. So the 2, 3, 4 are in that order, but I want to just read this one out. In the last 2 weeks, Killingly has scored 57 and 60. NFA gave up 0 and 6. So this Friday night is going to you could suggest this is the best defense Killingly will have faced this year. I don't know that NFA can score enough, but defensively that'll be very interesting to see how NFA holds up against that Killingly offense.
Yeah, I mean that's been the question all year: is can anybody touch them? Can anyone slow them down? We'll see Friday.
So moving up from the 8th spot all the way to 5 are the Fitch Falcons. Why, you might ask? Well, they got mushed by Killingly, but they were ahead in that game early. And then they came back and they beat Waterford handily. So if I'm true to my dismissing the Killingly results kind of a thing as hurting you, I'm looking at them competing early with Killingly and then beating Waterford, and that's why they've gone up from 8 to 5. And if you remember the last time we did this, I acknowledged that I thought I had put Fitch too low. And I owned that then. I'm very comfortable with where this belongs right there.
And so Fitch, if the playoffs started today, also in. So Thanksgiving looking mighty tasty this year.
Yeah, it's possible that all of the games on Thanksgiving might be a play-in for at least one team.
A lot would have to happen, but yes, that is all still on the table.
And it's possible that Fitch Ledyard could be a play-in game, winner in, loser out. It is possible NFA would need to beat New London to get in, and it is possible that Waterford would have to beat East Lyme to get in. That is all possible. Now, long road before we get to there, but those are all still on the table. All right, my number 6 team is my biggest enigma. I'm bumping them up. How do you lose and bump up from 7 to 6? Because everyone else lost too. Stonington. Why? Here's why. A very convincing win over Valley. 3-touchdown win over what I think is a solid Valley team. And then they lose 8-6 to Bacon Academy in a monsoon. If you remember what Thursday of last week was like, it was 40-mile-an-hour winds. It was an absolute downpour. Also, because of a police situation that had occurred earlier in the day at Stonington, no fans were allowed other than the parents of the players. So you're playing in front of no one, no band, no student section, no one, in the absolute pouring rain, And if you tune into this week's Grade 8, you'll see the big back-breaking play that Bacon Academy threw. But you can't beat Bacon in a monsoon. That's just the reality of it. So I think Stonington in this week, their game with Griswold, we talked about already. But I can't knock Stonington too much for the 8-6 loss in the pouring rain.
Don't get involved in a land war in Asia, and don't play Bacon in the rain.
That's correct. That's right. And never battle wits with a Sicilian when death is on the line. Number 7. I sat here and I wore your colors, and I want more than ever to just drop you out of I want to drop you out of the 10 all completely, but I won't. Waterford sticks at 7, despite what I would consider to be an absolutely brutal week for them. A loss to Woodstock, a loss to Fitch. They're 0-2, dropping them from 3 to 7. Why only to 7? Because everyone else lost too. I mean, this was the impossibility of it all. The Woodstock loss was a bad loss, giving up the pick 6 late in the game. The Fitch loss, I think Fitch is a good team, but Waterford's got to be kicking themselves right now. They still have the game coming up. Now, they play Wyndham this week. I'm done saying who should beat who anymore, but then they got Killingly, and I think that's where Waterford's they're gonna have to really regroup down the stretch.
No, so you could make an argument that they deserve to be lower after 2 bad losses. At the same time, a good win over your number 3, a good win over your number 6. So
yes,
I think you have to take into account recent results. I think you have to take into account potential, and I think you have to take into account good results earlier in the year. So they kind of end up in this weird in-between place.
I love you, Lancer Nation, but you're killing me. You really are. I mean, I sat here and wore your colors. You went out and you dropped 2 games. I mean, it just beating me up here. At number 8, also with an 0-2 week, I'm dropping East Lyme from 4 down to 8. But if you look at who they lost to, NFA and Ledyard, teams that are above them. NFA, they got shut out 21-0. Ledyard, they lost 46-7, also in that monsoon. And we saw how good, is there a worse matchup for a team like East Lyme in a monsoon than Ledyard? East Lyme can no longer throw the ball. Ledyard's a team that doesn't have any interest in throwing the ball. Just a bad week for East Lyme, but I still think that they got the right thing going on there.
Can you imagine if that game had been played on the old Bill Mignault field?
That would have been awesome.
I don't know that you could have found the ball.
Do you remember the game where Manny DeShields, Sanabria, we could no longer see his uniform at all? He was covered completely in mud, and it was glorious.
I remember standing at the 50-yard line before that game, and Bill Glennie was just trucking out the big bags of Quick Dry. That was the most futile thing I have ever seen.
Yeah, it was.
Talk about pushing a stone up a hill. I'm gonna make that one spot right there dry.
No matter what, that spot will be dry. So yeah, Vikings. Vikings a tough week, but I'll keep them there. Moving up from 10 to 9, the New London Whalers, the only other team that didn't lose this week. Now, granted, they had a bye, and then they went out and shut out Wyndham 40-0. And if I read it correctly, our guy, freak, Mr. Maddox Moore, had a three defensive touchdowns. That's got to be, in the annals, right? 3 defensive touchdowns. So, Whalers move up. Now, they've got an interesting game with North Haven, who is not had a great year for their standards, but that will be an interesting spot for the Whalers. East Lyme, by the way, with Stratford this week. We'll see what happens with them. Okay. Before I announce number 10, I want to say congratulations to Montville for getting their first win of the year over Bacon Academy. I want to say Woodstock is playing much better with 2 wins, including Waterford, and is on the cusp of getting back into these power rankings. And, Woodstock, if they had beaten NFA and then on the heels of that was able to come back and beat Ledyard, they could have been all the way up at like the 3 spot. So Woodstock and Montville, just giving you guys shout-outs. But at number 10, you can't ignore Bacon Academy. This is the best season they've had in a few years. Shout out to Coach Ladiga and the guys. That win, I don't care if it was in a monsoon, right? That win over Stonington at Stonington is a legitimate win over a good team. Bacon is now in position to finish a 500 or better. And after the loss to Montville, I went back to the question you asked me in the weather forecast. Would they make my final power rankings? And I said no. And the loss to Montville, I felt sealed that deal. That win over Stonington puts it back in doubt again. That Bacon team is still in the mix. This week will probably be the deciding factor in whether that happens or not. Because they're playing my other 10th team, the Valley Panthers. I can't decide between these two teams. This is a play-in game this week. This is your number 10 spot play-in game. Because Valley had a great win over Montville in overtime, but they also got hammered by Stonington. So getting hammered by Stonington and then losing and then winning in overtime against Montville. But here's the fun part, right? Valley loses to Stonington handily. Bacon beats Stonington. Montville beats Bacon. Valley beats Montville in overtime. So that's why they're playing each other this week. We're just going to let that be a play-in game.
So for all of you Woodstock Academy fans, j.o'neill@theday.com.
Yeah, if Woodstock is saying, why not us? You got 2 wins. Both of these teams have more wins than you. And if you had beaten NFA, you would have been in it. And I'm not even sold that you won't still jump over them. I'm going to say the same thing about Woodstock. I don't know. Am I being too hard on the Centaurs? I might, maybe. But this is not a poll of who I think the 10 best teams are or who I think would beat each other. I think Woodstock could very well beat Bacon and Valley. That's not what this is about. It's hard for me to put teams that have 4 wins out of it when you have a team with only 2 wins. It's tough at this point to ignore results. There is a certain amount of results, and every team in my top 10 has a better record. Decidedly, there's no one there that doesn't have 4 wins. Woodstock has 2. So, but they are still lurking. Centaurs are lurking.
I kind of feel about Woodstock how I felt about NFA a few weeks ago, that they did not start the season the way that they were capable of and are now on an upswing. So Woodstock was a team I did not see coming and was surprised by, and I think that they may continue to surprise a team or two.
Now, keep in mind, right, so they beat Waterford, and then they were right there with NFA. Now they got Ledyard. They still have Killingly. Like, it just doesn't get any easier for Woodstock. But those do provide opportunities to have a signature win on the season. So those are my 10 or 11 teams in the power rankings this week. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why Killingly is not the most dominant team we've ever broadcast on game day. Tell me why somebody's too high, somebody's too low. Tell me why I'm a fool. I don't mind. Don't mind it at all. Later this week, probably Wednesday, Mike DeMoro and I will sit down and talk all things CIAC rankings for these teams. We'll figure out who has the best path to the postseason, who has the best chance at a state championship, who's got a bad mojo brewing, all that stuff on Wednesday with Mike DeMoro. We're back into football. Championship games are done. We are now full football the rest of the way. Killingly and NFA coming up this Friday. Then we'll have 3 more regular season games after that, right? The 14th, one game the week of Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving Day. So we have 4 games left on the schedule. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
All right. So plenty of time for these rankings to move all over the place. Plenty of time for me to continue to show that the crystal ball knows all. Any final thoughts on these rankings?
Yeah, I'm going to stand by NFA and Woodstock as underrated. I'm not going to tell you who should
I noticed
move
that.
down to.
Yeah, I noticed that. All right, I'm going to ask you one question before we go. Of this top 10, I want you to look at the top 5 and the bottom 5. Who in the top 5 is the most likely to not stay in the top 5?
Ooh, that's hard.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. I'm going to say Fitch.
Okay. Now look at the bottom 5. Who of that bottom 5 is the most likely to crack the top 5?
I will say Waterford.
All right.
Now, I'm also going to say that there is a greater chance, it is more likely that that no one drops out, and that I kind of feel like we can draw a line there, and I'm not sure anyone's going to cross that line the rest of the way through the season.
Considering everyone's playing everybody, unless somebody goes on a crazy run, probably not. But if you're looking for the hot teams, Killingly, Ledyard, NFA, all 2-0 over the last 2 weeks, and so you're looking at the hot teams. That's them. So we'll find out moving forward. If you think I'm an idiot,
Keep it to yourself.
I'm not